Alison, good morning to you. Tell us about your findings.
Well, we sat in for the first time on a round of interviews in the Magistrates Commission. These are acting magistrates and some magistrates who are being interviewed for appointment in permanent positions. And what we found concerning is that the rigorous interview process really showed up a number of candidates, and a significant number of candidates who were not able to answer basic questions around, and in particular around sexual offences and related crimes.
What sort of questions?
Well, when people were being asked what the circumstances are that you may not take into account when sentencing somebody on a sexual offences charge, the candidate simply couldn't remember or didn't know the answer. I mean, in the case of swearing in a child witness, the question was, what happens if the child witness is incompetent? And the answer is that you can't go on with the trial. But that candidate said, well, they would wait for the witness to become competent. So across both questions relating to the law itself and then how you run the courtroom in that kind of case.
I mean, if that is the case, I mean, it's staggering, isn't it? I mean, it kind of leaves you speechless. But where does this leave justice for the victims?
Well, the process is rigorous. Candidates were asked good questions which tested their knowledge of the law, and in many ways it's a much better process than the appointment of judges to the high courts, where there is much less rigour in the questioning. There is, of course, training after people are appointed, and there is an initiative around sexual offences courts where you actually have specialist prosecutors, magistrates and support staff in order to make sure that the expertise is concentrated and is available when the survivor needs it.
Okay, so these candidates that you've been questioning, what's going to happen to them if they are found to be inadequate for the job?
Well, they have not yet been appointed. That appointment lies in the hands of the Minister of Justice. So we await the advice on that. There's another round of candidates that are going to be interviewed in the first quarter now in 2020. And what we're certainly hoping to see that perhaps as the process gets a bit more coverage and is a bit more transparent, that we'll have really good candidates coming forward, and perhaps candidates who still need to learn their way around some of these important areas of the law, hold back until they have a more comprehensive understanding of what the legislation is.
I mean, it must make you wonder how they even get to that point where they are in a position to speak to you when they don't understand the most basic of law around something that's so important in this country. What does it suggest is going wrong in their education?
Well, that's a very good question. We've been thinking about it, and it's early days for us to draw any hard conclusions, because we've only been really looking at the magistrates closely in the last 6 months. But one thing that certainly does occur to us is that attorneys write the sidebar exam, advocates write the bar exam. Magistrates don't have an equivalent exam, and it might be one of the things that might need to be considered is that, if not a comprehensive exam, but certainly passing some kind of test that relates to the specific areas that magistrate will be working in. So obviously if it's sexual offences, then that would be a subject area. But there's also magistrates who have to deal with really complicated civil law cases. So they really are, the coal face of justice in South Africa. They're who people mostly see if they are talking about courts and courtrooms.
Disturbing issue. Thanks for talking to us, Alison Tilley.